I've had an idea in my head for a while now, which is to photograph an image of an ocean wave breaking. I'm specifically after a print-worthy image I can put up somewhere at home. But rather than shooting this at a fast shutter speed, freezing all of the movement of the wave, I want to shoot this photo at a slow shutter speed so that there would be some motion blur in the wave while still keeping its shape. This idea came to me some time ago, but especially took root after I messed around with some slow shutter ocean images during sunset one day last summer, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And while this is a fairly simple idea, there's one main obstacle standing in the way of getting this photo. Around the greater Puget Sound area where I live, with the contour of the ocean floor and channels and inlets, we really don't get waves that actually break. To find these surfable type conditions, you have to go to places on the Washington coast like La Push or Ocean Shores. But the reason why I've hesitated to take this route, however, is having been to these places many times before and in doing some location scouting on Google Maps, I'm really not confident that the beaches will have the adjacent terrain which are going to give me the perspective on the waves that I'm looking for. So I decided to head out for the weekend to one of the places I thought these conditions might be most conducive, the Oregon coast. Well, weather conditions are looking pretty good so far this morning. It says the skies are clear, but it's not uncommon down here to get quite a heavy marine layer, which is exactly what happened to us at sunset last night. But sometimes it's just a matter of driving 10 minutes or so in one direction and it's going to be completely clear skies and sunny. So about to head out here pretty shortly and hopefully we get exactly the conditions we're looking for. So it's about 30 minutes till sunrise. The sky's just starting to get light behind me, and it doesn't look like there's too much of a marine layer this morning, which is good, but even what is there shouldn't be impeding the shoreline too much. So should be set up nice to get the shots I'm hoping to grab this morning. So despite scouting out the location last night at sunset and thinking that I had a spot picked out that was gonna work, when I got out there this morning, it really wasn't happening the way I wanted it to. The point at which the waves were breaking and really creating the angle for the photo I wanted, I couldn't get the right perspective without the hill in the front totally obscuring that. And while I do think that I'm going to have to crop in just because the 200 isn't actually giving me the reach that I was hoping it would, it just wasn't a spot that was gonna work out. So I went and found a different trail, and it's getting me a little bit more in front of the waves and getting rid of any hills obscuring the image in the front. So I think we got a winning spot now. Well, I'm definitely getting closer to what I'm after right now. This angle is much better for the perspective I'm going for with the wave kind of coming at the camera. It is interesting some of the unforeseen challenges that are happening right now. The waves obviously aren't breaking the same every time they come in, both in the actual break, what it looks like, but also where it takes place in the frame, which is really interesting. So I'm struggling with trying to get the break that I want occurring close to center frame and also timing it correctly with the slower shutter speed so that I'm getting it caught at the exact right moment. So I think it's just a matter of being patient and taking a lot of shots. One of the biggest reasons for coming down to do this photo on the Oregon coast rather than up north is I wanted to be able to get that elevated perspective, but I actually might be a little bit higher than I want to be, so I think I'm gonna venture down to this beach a little bit later. It's really soft, even light, because it's all shaded. There isn't a lot of clouds in the sky, so it wasn't the most amazing sunrise as far as color goes, but I'm really not focusing on shooting those grand landscapes right now. I took a couple, of course, just for fun, but I'm really focusing on getting this one particular image, which is a tight shot of the waves. I'm really not sure whether I'm going to prefer having no light and just really soft pastel blue color, or if coming back at sunset and getting more of a backlit version of the photo is going to be the one that I prefer. So I think that might be the plan for later today. This photo that I've been wanting to get has just been an idea, but I wouldn't say like a hyper specific idea. I know sort of what I'm going for, but just now as I was packing up and getting ready to leave, I happened to catch the angle, and it was just one of those I know it when I see it moments. And I got the light that I wanted, I got the conditions that I wanted. The only difference is it just wasn't quite far enough, or wasn't quite close enough. It was a little too far away, even with the 70-200. Really happy with how this morning went, despite having some probably more challenges than I would have expected, but in some sense, they are to be expected. So I think I'm gonna come back for sunrise tomorrow, as well as sunset here again this evening. I did end up hiking down to the beach for sunset, but was met, unfortunately, with some more challenges of a similar nature. The backlit conditions were way too contrasting, and I struggled to find a perspective for the composition I had envisioned. So this morning I've returned to an area where I was yesterday, only this time I hiked down to the beach, whereas yesterday morning I was up in the trees behind me here. It's my last day of the trip and the last opportunity I have to try to get this photo. And unfortunately, the conditions are not looking terribly promising. With the overcast lighting, it changes the color of the water and makes it more of that grayish rather than those deep ocean blues like we were so vividly seeing yesterday. Along with just having no real sunrise. The swells are just way smaller this morning than they were yesterday. So even just wandering around trying to get the angle and the height is still actually quite a challenge down here. But on top of that, the swells are probably half of what they were. And so, you know, you can't always win them all. And this trip was still an awesome one, but might not be walking away with the real image that I was after. But regardless of that, still a wonderful morning. There's no one down on the beach but myself. So it's nice to just start the morning with a little hike, enjoy some quiet time by the water. So when all is said and done, I didn't walk away with the photo that I wanted, but hey, that's just how it goes sometimes. I underestimated the focal length I'd need, and while I could probably pull it off with a 70-200 and some cropping, a lens with more reach would be beneficial. 1 to 2 foot swells weren't creating enough of the wave shape that I was after though. I learned what to take into consideration and now know how I should be more prepared for the next attempt. I also learned that I actually might not need as much of an elevated view for this image as I had actually been anticipating in my mind, so places closer to home might suffice after all, but there's only one way to find out. Overall, it was still time well spent, of course. I explored the proof of concept and still made a few images I'm happy with. What I'm seeing in my mind was starting to translate into an actual image. So for now, I'll put this idea back on the shelf and return to it another time.